got a little, okay, I was about to say, you got a
Yeah,
little
my hair was
alfalfa
like,
sprout.
it was like, hello.
It's like, hello there, General Kenobi.
I'm here to stay.
Oh, God. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of YA at Heart.
Yes.
Yay. Today we are going to be discussing, of course, A Court of Mist and Fury. And yes, we did read over the chapters, so bear with us. We are going to be discussing chapters 36 through 48. So
yes.
If you have not read 36 through 48, you'll probably want to stop at, what did we say we were going to read up to last time? 45?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. That's how bad it is. I can't even remember.
It's because we've gotten to the point where we're just kind of like, I just want to read through it. There's so much information happening. I don't want to stop.
Girl, tell me how I almost read up to chapter. I was like, I can do until chapter 60, right? I was like, oh,
no.
wait, no.
No. I'm not even up to chapter 60. I'm like up to chapter 57. Morgan's past chapter 57 at this point.
I am. And don't worry, we're not going to do all of them in one episode. We're going to break them into 2 episodes for you. So I don't even know, should we do predictions at the end? Because like the predictions that I have, I don't think interfere with what I read past. So I guess we can probably do predictions at the end. But yeah, without further ado, jump right into chapter 36. Tarquin's pretty much showing her around the mainland, and she feels like she's gonna betray him, or she feels like she's a traitor and that he doesn't deserve to be like backstabbed like this, but she's still gonna do the job. So later that night, with the plan that they concocted, Rhys is circling above the tower that holds the book in it. Feyre and Amren go in, and Feyre has to use, which is a really big part, Feyre has to use her shape-shifting abilities to change her hands into Tarquin's hands, because those are the only hands that can unlock the door.
Yeah, and we know that she was avoiding this specific ability of hers because it's Tamlin's ability.
Exactly.
And so she was really, really trying not to use this ability at all, if possible. If she could somehow avoid it, then she was planning to avoid the fuck out of it.
Yeah, the hand allowed her to get through the first door. And then she pretty much had to will it into her mind the second time, where she's like, I am Tarquin, I am your high lord, I am the summer, I am the sea, I am this, I am that. And then it opened up. Yeah,
the first time was real easy, kind of, because she just thought about all the smiles he gave her and like all of the kindness and everything. Then the second time it was like, all right, I really, like, she really, really, and it wasn't because she was struggling. It was because the power from the book was causing the struggle. Mm-hmm. That's what was happening.
Yeah, that shit was 2-factor verification.
Yes, exactly, basically.
So damn, they ain't playing no games.
It's like, are you sure you say who you say you are?
Right, like, I don't know, you look a little different. But they finally end up getting into the vault with the book, and the book is like in this, I think it's an iron box, and Feyre can hear the book talking to her. It's like, who are you? Who are you? She's like, I am Tarquin, I am this, I am that, like, I am the High Lord. And the book settles down, and she's like, okay, cool. She goes to pick it up and walk away, and the book is like, liar, and slams the door. I was like, oh, shit.
That's basically what Amren says in the next line. She's like, shit.
She does, yeah, because it's like they're going down there and it's already, the tide is starting to rise. So once the door slams, they're like, oh shit, we're going to be sealed in this watery tomb and they're going to find our bodies.
Basically. So then we move on to chapter 37, and Amren, at this point, Amren tries to use her abilities to bust through the first door that they're coming across. And she struggles with it. And even she's surprised that she's struggling with it.
Yeah, because she's supposed to be like as powerful as Rhys, almost even more powerful that he describes.
And so they do get through the first door. They make it through the hallway that leads to the second door. And as they're going, it's like turned into a waterfall, essentially. Amren ends up on Feyre's back because Feyre's like, all right. She's like, I'm stronger. I'm piggybacking you through this whole thing. She piggybacks her through the entire thing. They get through the second door. Amran is trying to push that door through. It's not happening. The water's filling all the way up. Panic ensues. Everybody's like, oh, shit.
Right. Like, I was like, oh, shit, they're not going to make it. And the whole time, I'm like, where the fuck is Reese? Where is Reese?
Right. So then so the water fills all the way up. They've both taken their last big gulp of breath. They're seizing up. Next thing you know, the door swings open from the outside. And lo and behold, it's the fucking water. How do you say it? Water wraiths?
The water wraiths. I told you they were gonna come back. I told you they were gonna come back. I just thought they were gonna come. I thought they were gonna come back and like jump somebody for her, but they ended up saving her. And then they were like, okay, our sister's debt is paid, like a life for a life.
Then at this point, they've taken them to the shore. And that's when Reese comes over and he's like, what the hell happened?
Right. He's like, you set off every alarm in the fucking palace, bro. I had to take
He was like, I was fighting down guards. Meanwhile, Amran is like, what the fuck? Like, where were you? And that's when he looks and he's like, I didn't feel anything down the bond. Like, me and Morgan talked about it. We're like, okay, so the book itself nullified the bond and nullified Amran's power. Mm-hmm. So, like, this shit is no joke. It's the real deal. So, at this point, Reese is like, we got to get the fuck out of here. I missed a couple guards on my way to you guys. So, he winnows them back home. And basically, they run into Cass more. They're at the house. And Cass is like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, they basically are, like, trying to get answers out of them. And Amran is also surprised that the water wraith saved them. And she's like, whatever luck you live by, girl, you better be glad. And Feyre actually, like, laughs. She doesn't laugh, like, genuinely, but she laughs as if, like, hysterically.
Yeah, because Amran basically, like, when she says that, she's like, thank the cauldron for it. Like, Amran herself is laughing. Mm-hmm. Like, you know that laugh of, like, oh shit, like, I made it. So Amran's laughing like that, which then causes Feyre to laugh like that, which then causes Mor and Cass to look at them like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? And they look at Reese, and Reese is like, I'm also still trying to get answers. I don't know what the hell happened.
Right. They also mentioned, too, with the book, Amran realizes why he chose her to go because he suspected that the book would be in a language she could read. It's the Holy Tongue, and it's called Leshon Hakadosh, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah. And he's also saying that Amran is going to be the one who can uncode it, and it might be a way to free her from her Fae body and send her back home.
I'm really curious. I really want to know her backstory. I really want to know what was her initial body. Why was she stuck in the prison? What's the story behind how she got out? I don't know. I'm really curious though about Amran's entire backstory, her whole situation.
I would like to learn more about it. I just don't want to learn what her previous body was like because for some reason I'm picturing something that looks like a kraken, but like flesh color. I don't know. We also learned that Big Daddy Kane, why he might want to resurrect Jurian, because of Miriam. Supposedly Miriam was the person that he was in love with, and if he finds out that Miriam is still alive, then he might have a sense of urgency and want to work with Big Daddy Kane and Hybran and everything else. So there was a lot going on in here and a lot of names and a lot of stories being thrown out. And I was just like, God damn. Like, they're definitely setting it up for what's to come, but I definitely had to reread that little part. And then we move on to chapter 38, where Reese is sitting up on the rooftop and Feyre finds him. And he tells her that they received blood rubies from the summer court, which basically means...
He's having a bad day!
Which basically means we got a price on your head.
Right! You being hunted.
It's not funny, because, like, Reese is really vulnerable at this moment. But I was just like, damn, they really put a hit out on these people.
They did. It's the mafia. It's the mafia.
Yeah. They were like, when you see them dogs bucking in your front yard... But yeah, so Reese is really upset about it because he mentions to Feyre, like, I feel like we could have really been friends. And he is the only High Lord who was not, like, so afraid of me that he was willing to have a friendship or an alliance with me.
Yep.
And he's like, and I fucked that up. Like, I messed up. I screwed up. And Feyre's, like, trying to console him. So she tries, like, flirting with him to get him to do tit for tat. First, he says he's not in the mood, but of course he gives in. Because Feyre's like, oh, I was thinking about going down to that little store and trying on the lacy things.
She talking about putting on lingerie for Tarquin.
She was like, yeah, I was going to ask if you wanted to come with me to shop for Zed lacy things.
Right.
So they flirt a little bit. Azriel shows up and then Feyre leaves. And as she's on her way downstairs, a vision pops into her mind of her trying on those lacy garments. And then Rhys and her, doing spicy time. And she smacks headfirst into a pole. She's like, fuck.
But wait, have you ever walked headfirst into a pole? I've walked headfirst into a pole. That shit fucking hurts. It fucking hurts.
Duh. I've walked headfirst into a couple of things. Not a pole, though. A wall. A person. But no, I think the most awkward thing that's happened to me is tripping over a fire hydrant. And people were like, how the fuck? I was like, it's a long story.
Okay, we gonna have to talk about that because I too have
questions.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that later.
I have questions.
Shut up. So Feyre realizes that this is a vision that Rhys put into her mind, and she's like, prick, and he laughs at her.
Yep.
And then later that night, Feyre awakes from her sleep because the house is kind of like, it's shaking, and it's encased in darkness. Like, she can't even see her hand in front of her face. She tugs on the bond and, like, finds herself in Rhys's bedroom, and he is having a nightmare. Like, he's levitating up off the bed, like, what is it? Light as a feather, stiff as a board type shit. And so... And so she's trying to wake him up, but he will not awake. She's like even smacking him in the face and shit.
And
like
it's not happening.
Down the bond.
Yeah.
After she slaps him, she calls his name again and he wakes up and immediately he pins her underneath of him. And I was like,
Yo, I thought it was going somewhere else. I was ready to be like,
I thought it was going somewhere else. I was like, oh.
I was like, spicy time.
Yeah. And so like basically he was having a really bad nightmare about, I believe, Under the Mountain or something like that. And she realized, like, he told her previously that he had nightmares, but she didn't realize that they were just as bad as her own. And so she's trying to like tell him like, hey, listen, it's okay. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. Also, pause. On top of that, I can't believe I just rolled right past it. Rhys is naked.
Yeah.
Bare ass.
Yep. And wait, there's a tattoo on his knee of Valaris, and I think when she asks about it or something, he explains, like, I don't know if is it this chapter?
Yeah, I think it's, oh wait, it might be another chapter. I can't remember because I didn't make the note of it, but he does explain, like, it means I bow to no one. I bow to no one but my crown, my equal, something like that.
Please keep that in mind for later on chapters.
Oh, please keep that in mind.
For later on chapters.
Whoo! So at the end of the chapter, Feyre does admit that, her hole in her chest is starting to heal. Like, she's falling in love. Yeah, and she kisses him on the cheek as well before she goes to sleep. I know. I was like, so that leads us into chapter 39.
Yep.
Where Feyre goes to visit Amren with the blood of the lamb.
Amren is like, oh, you sweet, sweet girl.
Amren is in there and she's trying to decode the first part of the book because that's her job in all of this. And she says that she got a blood ruby as well, but
it was nullified. She wasn't as upset. And Feyre was like, Rhys said that your option would be to want to just disintegrate the town.
The entire city.
Yeah. And she was like, oh, that was nullified. And Feyre looks at her like, what do you mean? And when she looks over, it's because, remember when we mentioned that Feyre had, when she went into the treasure trove with Tarquin, she saw the black diamond encrusted necklace, but then there was a ruby one. Is it Varen? Varen?
Varen or Varen, yeah.
Yeah, Varen sent that to Amren. He was like, he sent it to Amren to nullify her. To like just be like, listen, I know you're gonna be pissed off, but here's a couple of rubies.
Right, he was like, listen, I just figured, we didn't have any use for it, and it should go to the most powerful, majestic female I know. And she's like, you try and butter my biscuit.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, so he is interested in
I think he is.
Okay.
I really do. I think he's interested in Amren. Whether or not he's like trying to figure her out, or if he's just like enticed by the power. Because think about it, nobody else is enticed. Like everybody, Cassian is like, I'm gonna whip this little bitch's ass. Like nobody else is enticed by her, and like everybody seems to fear her. I think that this person is looking at her like, damn, she's a good opponent. Like she's up there. Like I see that. I think that's what it is.
I was also going to ask you too, how do you picture Amren? Because when I picture her, I do picture her like as a very like tiny little petite woman, but I also picture her as being older. No.
No.
Okay.
I picture her with the description that I got from the book when we first read about her, and then seeing a lot of fan art, and then seeing a lot of fan casting for her. I picture Amran at least maybe 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s.
Okay.
But I also picture her petite, short, Asian descent with straight black hair that's cropped, probably as short as mine.
Like a bob?
Yeah.
Or a long bob, kind of?
Yeah, that's what I picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's like, for some reason, the way that she speaks and the way that she holds herself, I know that she's supposed to be, she's supposed to be much, much older, but that's why I picture her as, like, older.
I think that's more of her soul is older, but the body she's in.
Not her body.
The body
because the body is brand new.
Exactly. So I think it's just her being an old soul, and how she talks is of older generation or older time, but the body that she was placed in is young.
Okay, I just wanted to ask because it's like when I'm reading about her and I see the fan casting, I was like, but she looks so young. So yeah. Also, in the following weeks, Feyre trains with Cassian. While Rhys was away and had to leave to handle business, Feyre texted him. So they were texting. And she found herself missing him. So I'm like, oh yeah.
She in love.
Feel the love tonight. So I was like, oh, that's so cute. But later in the chapter, we find out that the Mortal Queens finally agreed to meet with them.
Yes.
And they asked specifically for like the measurements and everything of like the house of Feyre's mortal estate. And we find out it's because these bitches can winnow.
Rhys is stunned. Everybody's fucking stunned. So then,
I thought you were gonna pull up via horse and carriage.
Same.
But all right, sis, go on.
That's what they were waiting for, though. In the books, like that's what everybody in the inner circle who went was waiting for. And instead, these bitches showed up in the middle of the damn room, and it's like, wait, what?
And then talking about, oh, it was a gift from your kind.
Whatever.
Was it?
No, it was stolen. We all know about y'all. It was stolen.
Bitches.
Yeah. So the queens there's a few of them actually. They range from ages.
They range in age.
And skin tone. So like, it's really, I was like, oh, okay. And I was trying to figure out how many there were in total.
I think there's 6.
But they were missing one. The oldest one was like, she's unwell, so she couldn't make the journey. But to me, that was suspicious. Because I was like, she couldn't make the journey, but the rest of y'all could?
Exactly. At first I was like, oh, maybe she's one of the queens that just absolutely refuses to meet with Faye. But as we get down later in the later chapters, I was like, you bitches.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So then everybody kind of just sits down, and this is basically Feyre. This chapter was Feyre trying to plead with the queens and just be like, you know, we need your help. We need you to align with us. We need you to be our allies because this is what's happening. And legit, these bitches are like, our plan is we're going to sacrifice the little bit of land here for the masses back home. So we don't really got to deal with y'all. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
that's how Nesta was too. Nesta was like, no, wait a fucking minute.
My thought process was, if Hybern decides, all right, I'm invading that little bit of land, what's to make him not want to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to cross the seas and invade y'all. Like,
Yes, he literally wants to take over all of the mortal lands. So why did you think that you were going to be exempt from that? Unless their power only extends to a certain part of the mortal lands that they can protect. So that might be it.
Yeah. So then Nesta is basically like, you bunches of bitches. There's humans who live here. There's children.
Not bunches of bitches.
She was like, we have all types of people. And you just, fuck y'all. I was like, Nesta. Yes, bitch. Yes. And then Rhys speaks. And it's like, it's not the Rhys that we come to know and love. This is High Lord Rhys. And he's basically speaking with the High Lord voice. And he's very much like, listen, you do not make fun of Feyre. Like, he comes to her defense, and then he's just kind of like, you know, we need you guys to ally with us, and you're not, you don't want to. Like, what is wrong with you guys? And ultimately, the queens are like, well, we'll ally with you if you can prove that, you know, there's something that's worth fighting for.
Right, to prove it that you're not the High Lord that everybody says you are. Like, you're not the cruel and cunning and dark lord or whatever. He's like, the only way that I can do that is to show them Bellaris. And they said they'll hand over the book. Like, they may hand over the book for that when they have that proof.
Right. It's not even like you show us Valaris, we'll hand over the book. It's you show us Valaris, we may, if we deem it worth, hand over the book. I was like, y'all
petty bitches. Now
Facts.
I had a question because maybe I'm understanding this wrong from the Bone Carver when we read that chapter. I thought that the cauldron didn't mean shit if you didn't have the Book of Breathings. Like, you couldn't resurrect anybody if you didn't have the Book of Breathings. You couldn't nullify the cauldron. So you can have the cauldron, but you need the Book of Breathings, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm like, then let the other half get destroyed in the process of trying to steal it. And then nobody wins.
Yeah, but then the problem is Rhys wanted to let Amren have the option to.
Oh yeah, to go home.
Yeah.
To go home. Listen, Amren, you've been living here for over 5,000 years now. This is your home.
You stuck with us. You stuck with us.
You're stuck with us. We are your family. This is your home. And I'm sorry, but if that means that if we can't get it and that means that he can't get it, that's a win-win for me. And y'all can just duke it out the old-fashioned way.
The one thing that I will say, the way this chapter ends, I was like, oh, Elaine, all right, you got a little bit of a mean streak. Elaine was basically like, I hope they all burn in hell. That's what she meant about the queens. I was like,
yes. I was like, oh, Elaine.
I was like, Elaine.
Potty mouth.
All right.
Potty mouth.
Got you. Okay. So then we move on to chapter 41, and basically everybody has winnowed back to Valaris. Amren is trying to check to see how everybody is, and she's like, so I'm guessing it went well?
Oh, yeah, bitch. It went great.
Oh, this is the chapter that I think we get kind of the backstory for Miriam. So
yes,
this was really interesting. So essentially, 500 years ago, leading up to the war that everybody was a part of, that Miriam was a half fae, half human born woman. And because her mother was a slave, because unfortunately she was a product of rape, she was born a slave. And the person who I guess was her master was supposed to be basically worse than Amarantha.
Can you imagine somebody worse than Antifreeze? Because I can't.
No, that's what I mean.
I'm like,
I can't imagine anybody worse than that. So I'm just kind of like, all right, is this bitch dead? Like, did y'all kill her?
I'm hoping so, because if this bitch is still roaming around Perithian, like, or
there's
wherever the fuck she at,
there's a problem.
It's a problem for me.
Facts. So then, basically what ends up happening is the master of Miriam, she was supposed to get married. She's a queen, and she was betrothed to a foreign fae prince named Drakon. Right? I say his name right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's Drakon.
Drakon.
I called him. I was like Dracon.
So Drake. and for her, she like sat there and she was like, "Okay, I'm gonna gift you this slave as a wedding present." And she gifts Miriam to him. So he lets her go. Mm-hmm. She finds Jurin. Her and Jurin become lovers. Then the Fae Prince had searched for 3 years for the slave Fae that he let go. Finds her with Jurin. Him and Jurin join forces. Then him and Miriam end up falling in love behind Jurin's back. And
Mr. Steal Your Girl.
Facts! The funny thing is Mora jumps in and she's like, it wasn't behind his back. Like, she's defending her friend. She's defending her friend.
She's like, listen, bitch, to get to the gist of it, A, B, C happened, and now D.
Yeah, so then Amren comes in, and that's what Amren says. She's like, look, we just gonna stop it right there. You can listen to the rest of it later. But this is what went down, and this is why this is what's happening now. And I was just kind of like, but can we go back to the story? Because I want to know, like,
I'm sure we'll get more of it. I'm actually predicting that we will probably see them in book 3.
Yeah, because then it's Rhys who says they're still alive.
Yeah, we knew that Miriam was still alive. We just didn't know where she was. And I had predicted that maybe she was with Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah.
But no, she's with Drake, and they're off on their own little island where human and fae actually live and coexist together.
Yes.
But the only thing was, like, they faked their deaths.
So here's the thing. Because the mortal queens asked for proof, Rhys is like, we got 2 options. Either we show them Miriam and Drake, or we show them Valaris. And Rhys is like, I'm not going to do that to my friends. Everybody thinks that they're dead. I'm not going to expose them for the rest of us. So that leaves Valaris, which even everybody is like, dude, no. Valaris is like, you know. So the compromise is that they will grab an orb from the Court of Nightmares that will show the Mortal Queens, Valaris, without actually exposing Valaris.
Right. And it's a truth orb as well.
Yeah.
And they know, they were saying basically, like, the Mortal Queens know what a truth orb is. So when they see it, they will believe it.
Right. So that is the plan.
And at the end of the night, Rhys is kind of like, listen, Feyre, I want you to sit this one out. And she's like, no, like, I'm in it with you. Whatever needs to be done, I will do. And he's like, but you're not going to like the part that you have to play. And she's like, listen, I am with you. I was like, oh. Mm-hmm. Lovers.
So another thing, when Rhys and Feyre are having this talk, more comes up. Her backstory comes up, and we realize that she was sold into marriage to Eris, the eldest son of the High Lord of Autumn Court. So basically, Lucian's brother,
who they knew, her parents knew he was a sadist, and they were like, well, we don't care.
Right, the highest bidder. What ended up happening was essentially Mor went back to the Illyrian camps with Rhys for a few days. So she knew that if she gave away her virginity, that it would cause an issue and she wouldn't have to marry Eris. Basically, she slept with Cassian. Mor and Cassian had spicy time. Cassian was her first.
Spicy time!
Cassian was her first. But when her parents found out, and then Eris found out, Eris refused to marry her. And her parents... Is it her parents that nailed?
Her parents nailed a note to her. I think they nailed a note to her stomach, and they dropped her off. I think she was naked.
They dropped her off at the Autumn Court.
Yeah, and she was naked, and they nailed a note to her stomach saying, "This is your problem."
Yeah, and then that's when Cass and Rhys went and grabbed her. She was there for what, like a day or two?
I think so, just in the forest.
Yeah, and then Cass and Rhys grabbed her and saved her, essentially. And I was just like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it was really brutal. It was really brutal.
Yeah. Okay, so now we move on to chapter 42.
Yeah. Chapter 42, they're on their way to the Court of Nightmares, and Feyre can tell that, like, Rhys is very tense while they're flying. So she tries to, again, flirt with him to loosen him up a little bit. She's like, oh, Mor and Amren said that you could tell a lot of an Illyrian male by their wing size.
The Illyrian wingspan also correlates with other parts of the male body. So, of course, when she said that, she also said Mor and Amren said Asriel's wingspan is the biggest.
And he's like, you fucking liar.
He was like, we need to measure. Like, we'll get a measuring stick.
Like, let's get out the tape, shall we?
Right.
And so they're doing their little tit for tat, and then Feyre reaches out and touches Rhys's wings, and he's like, whew, do it again. Like, listen, baby girl, if you're not ready for the consequences, you might want to put your hand back.
Basically. No, that's basically what he was saying, because he was just kind of like, the wings are super sensitive, and they correlate with other parts of his body. And I was just like, oh.
Which we'll get to it later. But yeah, they correlate with other parts of his body. So she's like, oh.
She immediately took her hand back. She snatched her hand back. She's like, oh shit. Because I think she asked him, right? She was like, what does it feel? Yeah, she asked him. She's like, what does it feel like? And he caressed her ear. I was like,
no. He got real close and he was like this. Like in her ear, I was like, oh.
I read that. I reread that. I slapped my head against the damn book. I was like, oh.
It's like,
okay. It's like, okay.
And while they're doing that, of course, and they're so, like, invested in each other, they're ambushed. They're fucking ambushed. Like, a whole bunch of ash arrows shoot up from the ground. And, of course, Rhys is, like, Matrix dodging them bitches. And he catches one, and he hisses. He's like, ah.
And he's got ash. What is it? Ash?
It's an ash arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he, like, all three of them plunge down towards the ground and land. And Rhys is like, hey, Cass, get Feyre out of here. I'll meet you guys at the night court. We need to find out who did this shit. And Feyre is like, no, I want to stay. I want to help. I want to fight.
Right.
And this is because Tamlin
would never.
Like, no.
Would never.
You back. But Rhys was like, all right, bet. He took her suggestions.
He says, me and Cass will go to the skies. And Feyre's like, me and Asriel will stay on the ground and search.
Right. And he's like, okay, that's a good plan.
He took her suggestion as an equal, as a person, a part of his inner circle.
Say it one more time for the people in the back.
As his equal. Oh, we love a man that treats you like his equal.
Love a man. But yeah, so they do that. They don't find anything, and Moore basically shows up like, "What the fuck is going on? Like, you're supposed to be at the night court." Yeah, and so he's like, "Take Feyre, and we'll meet up with you." Like, stall. So they get into the night court, and Feyre's pretty much describing what's going on.
Yeah.
How all the buildings and bridges are built from like the encasing of the mountains, and she's like, "We walked in, and people were fornicating right there." I was like, "God damn!"
Facts. No, legit. And then she was like, everybody kept looking at Moore and like sneering and things, and like Moore held
And
her
hissing,
head high,
yeah,
like a queen. She walked in there like a queen.
exactly, like the bad bitch that she was. Because
Exactly.
fuck y'all.
Right.
Yeah. So Reese finally gets there.
My man. All right, wait. Let me tell you how I pictured this. Reese walking in his High Lord attire of all black, but what's trailing behind him is the darkness that comes off him. Is just all that darkness just trailing back behind him as he's walking towards his throne with his head held high and the smirk and the yeah, I'm the fucking High Lord and what type of attitude. Like I cannot get enough of this character. I can't get enough of this character.
Oh my god, bro. To be honest, and I know this is probably gonna make you mad, I think he's number one over Castiel.
No! I don't know. Because Castiel is very much a feminist. He never tried to put Poppy down. If anything, he encouraged the fuck out of her. You know what it is? It's because we've read the first book and we've read the second book. And so we are thoroughly invested in Reese. We've only read the first book for From Blood and Ash.
So we have to go back to it.
You only read, up to what chapter?
Up until chapter 10.
You only read up till chapter 10 of the second book. I read the whole second book and some of the third book. So I'm thoroughly invested in Castiel because there's not one thing Castiel can do that I deem wrong. If anything, I would have a trope, not a trope, a throuple.
A throuple with Castiel
and
and Reese.
I could do no wrong with those two. No wrong. And then I would have a quadruple with Kieran, Cass, and Azriel.
Bitch, shut up.
No!
Oh, God. All right. So they're in the night court. Reese comes in, and basically Feyre has to play the role of his plaything. So she's sitting on his lap while he's like stroking her like sides and her like thighs.
He was getting
and stuff
a lot
like
of side
that.
boob that day. A lot of side
He
boob.
was. And she's like getting turned on by it. He's like nibbling her ear and stuff like that. They're both like, they're grinding in the chair.
Did you see though? Because she knew she was getting turned on, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong." And he was like,
he stopped.
He stopped. He like jolted, stopped, and in his mind, he was telling her, "It's okay. It's just your body's natural reaction. It's okay." To me, I sat there and I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, because he can hear what's going on in her mind, obviously, because she has, I guess, a little bit of her mental shield down so they can communicate. But he was like, yeah, listen, it's okay. And so after that, Azriel has finally stolen the orb because they're putting on a show to distract everybody from Azriel. So once Azriel's like, I got it, let's fucking bounce. Reese tells Feyre, like, go over to Cassian and I'll be over in a minute. I have to talk to, what's his name? Kair, which is Papa Moore. Moore's daddy.
Yeah.
He does some running of what's in charge, whatever, I guess when Moore's not there. And so he's asking him for like status updates and stuff like that.
Reports.
And as Feyre passes by, Kair is like, whore.
Dumbass. He's a fucking dumbass for that.
Dumb. Why the fuck? Why would you? He asked for it. He fucking asked for it.
No,
and
he
Reese
did.
Immediately had his arm in a fucking lock and broke every bone in the opposite direction. I was like, damn.
And then he tells him, he's like, don't you dare try to get that shit healed.
He was like, keep my high lady's name out your fucking mouth.
Because Tamlin would never. He would never.
Tamlin's a bitch.
Would never. But
my God.
What it was that the word whore is a trigger because everybody's called him a whore. So he never wants Feyre to ever be called that.
Yeah. So he went he went psycho on this dude. Basically, that's how that chapter ends. And Feyre's kind of a little turned on by it. She's like, oh.
She's like, somebody protecting me? Okay.
So we move on into chapter 43. You want to take this one?
Yeah. So then Reese has, he knows that he kind of messed up. because he knows that like that wasn't the plan. The plan wasn't to go in and torture Moore's dad in any way or whatever. It was just to get the orb and get out. But he was triggered by the word whore, and especially because it was being thrown at Feyre. So he grabs Feyre and winnows out. Instead of going back to Velaris, which is where everybody else went, he winnows them out to like the outskirts of the Court of Nightmares, where there's like a lake or something there. And basically, he tells Feyre, like, I'm sorry. And Feyre's like, you don't have anything to be sorry about. It's not, you weren't the one that called me a whore. Like, it's not, it's not you. And then she just kind of is like, we knew the parts that we were going to play. We knew that we were going to do this. And so if you couldn't take it, then you need thicker skin. Like, that's essentially what she's saying.
And I was like, you ungrateful bitch.
Facts. I started getting annoyed with her with this because I was like, she's very upset. What are you doing? Essentially, I think she like unintentionally starts comparing him to Tamlin. And Rhys picks up on it, and Rhys is like, stop. Like, just stop comparing me to him. I'm not him. I would never lock you up. I would never do anything like that with you. They end up having an argument. He's like, in his story, he's like, I'm always going to be the villain. And Tamlin, is always going to be the golden prince. He's always going to get whatever he wants. And then he was like, he was supposed to get you as the reward for everything that went down. And Feyre, rightly so, like she does say, and I agree with her, where she's like, well, what about me? What about my story? Don't I get a say in any of this? It kind of turns into Rhys basically asking Feyre, like, what is it that you want? And she can't answer it because she herself is confused. She doesn't know herself. She's still very much confused. So then with that, what ends up happening is because he's pushing her, she decides, all right, I'm going to hurt you. It's a defense mechanism. Like, if somebody's pushing you to hurt you, then you're just going to hurt back. So,
but that's the thing. Like, he wasn't pushing her to hurt her, but she automatically, like, struck out at him or lashed out at him.
I think that's all due to her upbringing with Nesta and Elaine and her dad. Yeah. And also with what went down with Tamlin. So all of it is a defense mechanism that she's grown to have with these other people. And Rhys is different, but she doesn't know that yet. So
it's like when a guy tells you I'm not like him.
Yeah.
But he really isn't like him.
Right. So then what ends up happening is she basically tells him, like, at least I let people see me for who I am. Like, you have these masks that you show everybody and you won't let anybody in. And she's like, and if you did let somebody in, you're scared that person's going to leave because you're a mess. Rhys already thinks he's a mess. He already thinks, shit, I went through a shit ton of trauma under the mountain. A shit ton of stuff that went down with Amarantha.
Right. A shit ton of stuff before what happened with down the mountain, like with Tamlin and everything like that.
Tamlin, his mom, his upbringing, his father, everybody. He's had a lot of trauma through his entire life. The Illyrian camps, everything. And so he already knows he's a mess. But for somebody that he obviously is falling in love with or already loves, to call him a mess was
That's
like
hurtful.
That was like slapping his face. When that happens, he actually physically flinches. And when she sees it, she's like, oh shit, I fucked up. But at that point, the damage is done, and he's like, let's go home. And then they end up in the townhouse. She walks to the garden patio, and she's really hoping that Rhys will show up and, like, maybe sit down. And basically, what she was hoping for was for them to reconcile right then and there.
Let's pause right there. Let's put a pin in that bitch right there.
Okay.
Because first of all, you insulted him.
Right.
You hurt his feelings.
Right.
Why the fuck would you expect him to follow you outside and be like, oh, are you okay? We should talk. No, bitch. She is so self-centered. I cannot fucking stand it. She does not deserve him.
Not at all. Not at all.
Stupid bitch.
Especially not in this whole scenario. No.
Right. It's like being like, oh, fuck you. And then going to the side and being like, are you gonna come make me feel better? No, bitch. The fuck?
Basics. No, that's legit what it was, though. That's exactly what it was. It was, oh, I hurt you, but you should come and pacify me.
And you should come and pacify me so that I can apologize to you the right way.
No.
She pissed me the fuck off in that
this
moment.
chapter.
I was really mad.
It was this chapter and one other chapter that pissed me off. That I was like, you don't deserve him. He's way too nice for you. So then he never comes. Didn't show up to breakfast, didn't show up to lunch. Nope. And then she realizes, oh shit, he's not in the townhouse at all. She writes on the little note, she texts him, right? She writes on a little note, she wants to talk to him. He completely ignores it.
Right, because the note is supposed to disappear after she writes onto it.
Never disappears.
And that shit was left on red.
So then what she ends up doing to pass her time, because now she's pissed that he won't talk to her. So then she ends up at Amran's apartment, and like she spends her time with Amran, talks about Starfall, which is coming up.
Yeah. She also Amran also mentions that the Summer Court is able to track him.
Oh yeah.
When he uses his magic.
Yeah.
Which is a really big deal because he winnows in and out of Valaris
a lot
all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, oh shit, do they know about Valaris?
Mm-hmm. Amran mentions that. She mentions Starfall, which Feyre knows nothing about. And then Nula
and Cerwinian? The twins. The goddamn twins.
Right. The twins arrive to help Feyre get dressed.
Yeah.
And then she, continues to wait for Rhys to respond, and he doesn't.
Because let's let you experience what life was like before or post, not post. Ah, shit. Sorry, I'm a little tipsy. I've been drinking.
I've been drinking.
What is it? She gets to experience life again, like pre-Rhysand, and maybe that's what she needed. Maybe she needed a little bit of a cold shoulder to put her ass back in check.
Facts, because I think she got full of herself. I think she really sat and was like, he's not going anywhere, like da-da-da, whatever. And she thought she could hurt him to an extent, and no.
And there not be consequences. Like, he's still a fucking person too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So then we move on to chapter 44. The twins have dressed her in this beautiful blue gem-encrusted gown. She goes out towards, I think, like the front or the patio or something, and she sees somebody standing there, and she immediately thinks it's Rhys. It's Cassian!
I know you didn't expect Rhys to show up.
No, bitch. No. So he's her ride to the House of Wind, because that's where everybody is, like everybody is there.
Yeah.
To celebrate Starfall. So then he gets her there and stuff, and Mor spots her as she's talking to Mor, and she starts to ask Mor about Cass and Azriel, and Mor gets a little snippy.
She does. Now, this just makes me further believe that maybe there is something that's unspoken between the three of them, and maybe she wants to leave it unspoken.
Because, like, here, it explains even more. So, here she explains that Rhys had left to go back to the Night Court with his mother that night. And Azriel went with them. So that left Mor and Cass by themselves. And that's when she said, out of everybody, I wanted Cass to be the one. Why choose Cass when it's obvious that there is something between you and Az?
I think at that time, it was her thought process. Because if she had lost her virginity to Azriel, who is the son of a High Lord, then he would have been like, all right, you get married to him. Like, we're going to sell you off to him now. But because Cassian was of lower rank and lower status, she knew that nobody would want to marry her after that.
Yeah, but she says that she chose Cass not because of that.
Oh, she does. Oh, right. Yeah, she does.
She says she chose Cass because he's a great Illyrian. He's the greatest of the Illyrian warriors. Right, exactly. So she didn't choose him due to his upbringing. She chose him because he's a legendary Illyrian warrior, and she wanted to lie with the greatest of Illyrian warriors. It's just, I don't know, this whole thing, there's more to it. We're getting little bits and pieces, and there's way more there's way more. Especially because there's obviously a lingering of protection. Because a sense of protection, because Cass is very protective of Mor, and so is Az.
Do you think that the mating bond snapped into place for Cassian and for Azriel?
No, I thought we agreed that Cass and Nesta are mates.
Okay, yeah, maybe Cass liked Mor.
Okay, maybe so still likes Mor. What we know about the mating bond is you don't have to love the person to be mated or to be bonded to them with a mating bond, right? Mm-hmm. But you could love somebody else and still have a mating bond with another person. Yeah, I'm gonna put this out there. There's theories. For instance, there's a theory that I read going around that Amarantha and Tamlin were actually mates. That they had a mating bond, but Tamlin rejected that mating bond. And that's why Amarantha went psycho.
Oh, shit. That would make a lot of sense.
Which is kind of why I like sit there. I'm like, actually, I would believe that. I would totally believe that because she really, really wanted Tamlin and was so psychotic about it.
She wanted that D bad, bro.
Yeah. And Tamlin, you can't deny that Tamlin loves Feyre.
Yeah.
He loves her. His love is a little off, yes, but he loves her. But he's not mated to her. It's not a mating bond.
And even she herself was asking, like, when is this mating bond going to snap into place?
Right, exactly. And it hasn't. So I don't think that they're mates. I think he loves her, but I don't think they're fated as mates. That kind of explains a little bit of this triangle that we have with Mor, Az, and Cass.
Yeah.
Because what if it is that Cass loves Mor, but isn't fated to be mate bonded with her?
Yeah, but Azriel maybe is mated.
Yeah, what if Az is actually fated to be mate bonded to Mor? And that is the reason why we have two Illyrian males, who love her and want to protect her and are overprotective. Because one of them is actually kind of supposed to be mated with her, and the other one just happens to really, really love her.
It makes it so much more sad. And then she's trying to stay neutral because she doesn't want to, like, hurt anybody's feelings. Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah, and it would also explain why she gets super defensive as well.
Yes. Yeah. Because there's no reason. Like, there's a lot of things where I'm like, well, wait, if you don't really feel like that about him, then what's going on? You know what I mean? And it's been constant that we've read that Mor seems to be one of the only people to calm Azriel down.
Yeah.
And it's like, even Rhys is like, he's like, it's been years. I don't know how to calm him down. There's always a rage there. But Mor seems to be the only one who is really able to.
Predictions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, with Mor, talking about her Az and Cass and stuff, it ends up leading to Rhys showing up. Mm-hmm. And, he jumps back into it and he's like talking to Feyre and, all this stuff. And Feyre, of course, is like, oh, you plan to ignore me today? Like, with her little backhanded
bullshit. I'm talking
to
you, ain't I?
Backhanded bullshit. But then what ends up happening is he takes her to a quiet, small balcony further up so that they can talk more and it just be them and not have an audience. They haven't resolved their issue. They're just officially going back to talking. And then one of the little starfalls hits Feyre in the face. Like, dead in the fucking face.
And it's not even a star. Rhys explains that they're souls.
They're souls!
And so the soul smacks her in the face and she has, like, green dust all over her face. And she's like, oh,
ew.
My God.
But then Rhys is laughing. And Feyre says, like, this is the first time she's ever heard him, like laugh. Like a
genuine laugh.
Right.
Yeah.
While he's laughing, one hits him in the face. So then they're both looking jacked up, but laughing at each other. Feyre, like, grabs his hand. And for the first time ever, she, like, smiles in front of him. And then she, like, paints a little star. And Rhys is so stunned by the fact that she smiled that he asks her to smile again. And she does. And she realizes the entire time that she's known him under the mountain and everything, she's never grinned, she's never chuckled, she's never smiled. And then she's like, I've never smiled for my friend. At this point, he tells her, I knew you were right. And because I knew you were right, it's the reason why I didn't come home. It's the reason why I stayed away. And then, of course, Feyre, her defense, one of her defense mechanisms is to make a joke at an inappropriate time. And she's like, oh, you were scared of an illiterate human. The High Lord of the Court of Knights was scared of an illiterate human. And then he says, I wish I could take back that kiss under the mountain. And she's like, immediately like, why? And he was like, and he says, essentially, because I didn't make it pleasant for you, and I was jealous and pissed off, and I knew you hated me. And I was just like, Rhys! Oh my God. So then, at that point, Feyre is like, okay, this is dangerous territory. She's like, we're going into dangerous territory. But then she really thinks about it and she's like, no, this is honesty. We're being honest with each other.
And that's what she asked for.
Right. And so after that, she's like, do you want to dance with me? And that's what they do.
Yeah. And then we head into chapter 45. And it's the next day. And Feyre mentions that Cass and Moore are unusually quiet while they're eating breakfast. And I'm like, they had sex.
Oh, you think they had sex?
I think they had sex.
You think Cass and Moore had sex?
Maybe, because it's like they're both sitting at the table and they're just like not saying anything, not looking at each other. I'm like, oh, you definitely had sex. I don't know, but that's what I'm assuming. And then after that, Moore winnows to the night court because that's where she's supposed to be. At this point, Feyre is again feeling like, oh my God, I'm a traitor.
Oh, wait. In chapter 45, their plan is to go to the Illyrian war camps. So Moore, she has to winnow everybody to the Illyrian camp because somebody's tracking Rhys's magic.
Yeah.
And another thing about Starfall, Rhys hadn't gotten to see Starfall, right? In a while.
Yeah. Okay, so it was mentioned he didn't get to see Starfall because he was under the mountain for 50
and
fucking years.
Amarantha knew that Starfall was important to him. And so that very night, every day, not every day, I'm sorry. Every day of Starfall, every time Starfall came around each year, she made it so that Rhys had to quote unquote service her all night. Mm-hmm. So he never got to see Starfall for the past 50 years. And
it also ruined the memory of that day for him. She is a wicked fucking bitch. And then, of course, Feyre is also feeling like a traitor. She's feeling it more heavily now. And she's feeling bad because she feels like she moved on way too fast. But in my mind, I'm like, girl, he's fucking an eighth.
You really think he's fucking an eighth?
I guarantee you. I guarantee you. So? And then he's going to be like, I accidentally fell into her vagina. I'm so sorry. Yes. Yes, girl. I slipped down the hallway into her room and into her crevices.
What it is I slipped down the hallway and she was wide open.
Right. Like she is for every fucking body.
Everybody.
So, and he was like, I haven't had Feyre in a long time. I need sweet release. So I already know.
What release is that though when it's a big black hole? Because if everybody done had it.
Bitch, stop!
What is going on? I hate a Nath. I fucking hate this bitch. I can't.
Oh God. So anywho, so they went out to the camp, and Rhys makes it very clear to the head of the camp and all his cronies behind them, because they treat females a certain type of way, that Feyre is mine. And bruh, why did it remind me when he said Feyre is mine or she's mine? I was like, Suki is mine.
Oh yes. But the best part was, I miss True Blood. The best part was, when he said it, I thought he was saying it as like, okay, it's a threat. Like, if any of y'all touch her, I'm gonna be the one to fuck you up. But no. He basically says, and if any of you lay a hand on her, you lose that hand, and then you lose your head. And once Feyre is done killing you, then I'll grind your bones to dust. I was like, oh.
Because he knows that she can handle herself, but he's gonna step in and do that little extra, little extra dig. Yeah. Right. So I was just like, oh, Rhys, how could you not love him?
I love this man.
I know. So Rhys sends off Moore and Cassian to do their bidding, and he takes Feyre further out to start to train. And Feyre, of course, has a lot of questions that day. Like, Rhys is an encyclopedia or some shit. So he's like, okay, I'll grant you this. Every time you do a little bit of magic or you work with your powers or whatever, I will grant you an answer to your question. And this is where we learn the really big story, the true story of what happened between him and Tamlin. So he and Tamlin were originally friends because he realized like, oh, Tamlin is kind of an outcast in his family. I'm a half-breed, his brothers are super mean to him. My dad is like, whatever, my people don't really like me, so let's be friends. Like, he would seek him out at all the venues that they went to.
And everybody disapproved. Like,
yeah.
Cass and Az disapproved. His mother disapproved. People were, like, his closest friends and family did not approve of this friendship.
Right. Right. And so he says that one day he told Tamlin, like, oh yeah, my mom is going to come to visit me at the Illyrian camps. I'm going to meet her here. It's going to be like a whole good time. Tamlin then, I don't know if he told this information to his father or if his father like kind of beat it out of him or whatever. But either way, Tamlin went back and gave that information to his family.
I read that. I read that as Tamlin, in a cowardly way, gave the information up to save his own ass.
No, yeah.
That's how I read that.
That makes sense.
And I was like, you bitch.
Dirty little bitch.
Like,
yeah.
Facts, yeah.
So he gave that information to his father, and then Tamlin's father and all of his brothers, and Tamlin, who is just standing there like the bitch that he is, watches as his fathers and his brothers murder Rhys's mom and his little sister. And then send their heads in boxes down the river.
And then keep the wings in his study.
Yeah, and keep the wings. And Rhys is like, oh, I'm surprised you haven't seen them in his study. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
My thing is,
you gotta be kidding me.
My thing is like, all right, Big Daddy Kane is looking to bring back Jern, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all he has is a finger and an eye. Can we bring back Rhys's mother and his sister if we got wings?
No, because their soul has to be trapped within. Their consciousness has to be trapped within that. So no. I know. Yeah. And I was just like, that's some fucking bullshit. So yeah, they're dead. And then of course, Rhys and his dad go to retaliate. So they kill all the brothers.
All the brothers.
And he was like, my dad told me that we were just gonna like go and kill the brothers. And the dad
kill the people who killed my mom and my sister.
Leave it at that. But he's like, my dad went in there and slaughtered everybody. He slaughtered the brothers, the dad, the mom, Tamlin's mom. And he went to go slaughter Tamlin, and I stopped him. And when he stopped him, Tamlin opened the door and killed Rhys's dad. And he had the opportunity to kill Rhys's dad. So I was like,
but in that exact moment is when the High Lord's power transferred
to both of
Tamlin
them.
And to Rhys.
Yeah, because both of the High Lords were dead. So now Rhys is High Lord and now Tamlin is High Lord at that young age.
And Rhys ran. But like, I personally don't see him running as a cowardly thing. I sit there and I'm like, if he didn't run, then something would have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they would have both been fighting. And he said, he was like, I was so tired of the bloodshed and the killing and everything that happened that night. I didn't want to do it. And of course, he still, I don't know, I guess he still kind of looked at Tamlin and was like, damn, you were my friend. And he didn't want to do that. So he left. And this whole time, Feyre's like, I didn't know that I was like almost about to be married to a monster. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And also, I was super confused because I thought at first Rhys said that Amulet killed his dad. But Amulet? I guess it... Yeah, Amulet.
Amarantha?
Yeah, Amulet. That's what I said. Amulet.
Sorry. I was like, wait, Amulet, what? Amarantha.
Yeah, Amulet. So I thought that originally she killed him, but I guess not. And Feyre was asking, like, why didn't you tell me any of this? Why would you keep this a secret? And he was like, well, you were in love with him. You were going to get married to him. Like, I'm not going to try to sit here and talk bad about this dude and pit you against him. Like, that's not who I am.
Right. I don't... okay, so going back to when we thought Amarantha killed Rhys's dad. Mm-hmm. No, what it was that Amarantha wanted to kill Rhys's father for killing Tamlin's father. But she settled for Rhys. And basically did what she did to Rhys as kind of like a revenge on his father because she couldn't actually do anything to his dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically Rhys was the what is it called? It's not a scapegoat. It's
the substitute?
Yeah.
So then as she's hearing that story, she has a whole bunch of emotion and rage in her, and she ends up using all of the powers that she has and like kind of meshing them together. So it's not just, oh, this comes from the day court and this comes from the night court. She mixed both of those powers like together and shit like that. And at the end, she's so inspired by Rhys standing there in the middle of the clearing. She's like, I want to paint you. And this is the first time that she's actually like said out loud, like, I want to paint. I want to do something. Yeah. And of course he's like, nude is best.
Yep. Yep. Like, he gotta ruin everything.
Right. You had to run that moment, bro. But they both do that. They both substitute like humor for their pain.
It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah, for both of
them. I
them.
have that defense mechanism, is when you make jokes at inappropriate times.
Yeah.
So basically, we move on to chapter 46. We're back in the little small house in the Illyrian camp, and Mor and Cassian are talking about the girls that are being trained, and like how some of them have a natural instinct for fighting, and how Cass is trying to create an aerial unit of just women to show the Illyrians that the women aren't just for breeding, but they can fight too. So then the next day, they end up in the forest. He takes her further out so that, God forbid, her powers go out of control. They don't harm anybody.
Burn up somebody.
Right. And he's trailing behind her. And she's like further down than him. As she's making her way, she hears something snap, like a branch or something. She immediately thinks it's Rhys, so she turns around. And she hears them call her name Feyre. And she immediately looks at the source, and it is Lucien.
It's fucking Lucien. And the sentries that used to, like, guard her at the spring court.
Yeah, like, they're back. Bitch. They're back. Oh, Tamlin was like, go find my chick.
Bitch. Like, and that takes us straight into chapter fucking 47.
This was my favorite chapter.
It's my favorite, too, because Feyre really puts her foot down. Lucien is trying
as she should have.
Yeah. Lucien is trying to, like, convince her to come back to the spring court.
I don't fault Lucien for this. I don't fault Lucien for trying at his hardest to get her back with words. I don't fault him. I think because there's a line in here where he says that Tamlin hasn't been the same or something.
He hasn't been himself. Yeah.
Right. And so to me, what I see here is Lucien still trying to be that very good friend to Tamlin, and knows, okay, if I get Feyre back, then everything might be okay. Tamlin might go back to normal. Do I agree with how everything went down? No. But I don't fault Lucien for this. I honestly fault Tamlin.
I know what you mean. But I'm still like, he knows what happened to her. And Feyre brings that up. Because he tries to, like, after he's trying to use his words, he lunges for her to try to winnow them back to the spring court. And she's like, what the don't touch me. And she's able to use her powers to, like, get away from them. And Rhys is standing next to her. And then she lets Lucien have it. Because it's like, I get that he's trying to do the best that he can. He's just trying to bring the family back together, quote unquote, or whatever. But my thing is, like, you saw how miserable she was. You saw how she was wasting away. And Feyre brings that up. She's like, you did not protect me. You let him lock me up.
And I'm not excusing that. I'm not excusing that in any way. I feel like Lucien should have done more in that sense. However, I also sit back and think about Lucien's backstory and how he came to the spring court and how he must feel indebted to Tamlin. There's a lot there. You know what I mean? I feel like for Lucien, it's a lot of loyalties. Do I go up against the guy who saved me, or do I help this human girl that I just met, that I just made a fragile friendship with? Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
no, I get what you're saying, but it's also like, right is right and wrong is wrong, and you know he's wrong. Call him out on his bullshit. Like, you know he's wrong. So it's like, I get it, but it doesn't make it right.
We also seen Tamlin snap at Lucien. Lord knows what else has gone down.
Tamlin's a bitch.
But do you get what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
when Feyre was at the dinner table and stuff, he snapped at Lucien, and Lucien felt like he couldn't do anything. Lucien felt like he couldn't fight against him. And so my thing is like, I don't excuse Lucien. He should have done more for his friend. So like, this chapter, the reason I like this chapter though isn't because Lucien is trying his hardest to get Feyre back. It's because Feyre puts her foot down and she tells him to his face, you should have chosen me. You saw what he was doing and you should have helped me, and you didn't. And that's why that place is no longer my home. When Rhys shows up, or before Rhys shows up, Feyre, to prove a point and stuff, I think this is when this isn't it. It's a little later.
Are you talking about the wings?
Yeah, so
it's when she's next to Rhys. Like, Rhys comes back and he's standing next to her and he's like, oh, Lucien, poor little Lucien, what are you doing here? And him and Lucien going back and forth, and he's like, Feyre, he's not going to stop coming for you. And she's like, tell him the next people that he sends here, as she's growing talons and as she's growing wings, like the wings are sprouting out of her back, she's shapeshifting. And she's like, you tell Tamlin that if he sends anybody else for me, their ass is dead.
Lucien no longer is talking to Rhys. He starts talking to Feyre again. Mm-hmm. And he's just kind of like, Feyre, like, you made your point. Now come home. And she basically is like, don't coddle me.
Yeah, she's like, I didn't do this for attention. I didn't do this to prove a point. I did this because you were killing me. You're killing me.
Yeah, like, she's like, don't coddle me. Don't act like I'm a child. And this is when she puts her foot down and she makes it very well known, like, I'm not fucking going back. You're just gonna have to deal with him.
Lucien also says something very interesting when he's trying to convince her to come back. He's saying things got bad and Nath got out of hand. Tamlin's not himself. I was like, whoa. And Nath
what do you mean Nath got out of hand? Right. What was she doing?
What the fuck is going on? What did Nath do? Like, is Nath now in power? Is she running the Spring Court while Tamlin is losing his mind trying to get Feyre back?
What is happening over there?
Like, I don't know. But that's like, I need to know. And if Azriel is trying to keep an eye on the situation, he might have some more insight as to what's happening. So I'm hoping that will come up a little bit later. And he picks her up, like, and flies her to a new spot. And he's basically like, I'm so proud of you. And kisses her on the brow. And I was like, oh, the brow kisses.
It's really cute because he says, like, Rhys acknowledges, he's like, I knew things were bad, but I thought Lucien at least would have stepped in.
Yeah, and she's like, no.
Even he thought Lucien would have done something.
Right, because it's expected that you would. When you see something is wrong and you know that Tamlin is fucking up, you need to step in.
Yeah, and then what ends up happening is Rhys squeezes her, and then he, like, basically tells her, like, you look good with wings, and that's when he kisses her on the brow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
So cute. Yes.
So then we move on to chapter 47?
48, yeah, which is the last chapter for this
48.
episode.
Oh, this was the spicy chapter. We got spiciness in this chapter.
Spicy time! It wasn't like full-on spicy time, but it was like a little bit of spicy time.
It was enough 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 spicy time for me to read it twice.
I've waited 465 pages for this specific spicy time, not for her and Tamlin spicy time. No.
For Rhys and Feyre spicy time. And
right,
Ashley and I were discussing this. What was it? A couple of days ago, before we did the podcast, we were like, we didn't realize
it was a slow burn,
and we hate slow burn. We hate slow burns, but this shit right here.
Listen, we sat there and we were like, I was talking to Morgan, and I was like, this shit was secretly. It was a friends to lovers.
Yeah, it was
trope.
Enemies to lovers and then
enemies
friends
to lovers. Yes. Yep.
Oh.
It had everything that me and Morgan were like, we don't really like those. They're not really fast paced. This isn't it. This was all like wrapped up into one in this book.
Yeah.
Secretly.
So I guess we like it if you do it well.
If you do it well.
Yeah.
If you hide it under other things and we don't realize it till towards the end.
Exactly. We're like, oh shit. So they are at the inn. They get to an inn because they're pretty far out from the Illyrian camp. Yeah. And the room is like super, super small, super cramped. They're pretty much talking, and Rhys is saying like, oh, well, if you chose to go with Lucien, I would find some way to like live with your decision. And Feyre's like, well, what if he grabbed me? And Rhys is like, if he grabbed you, I would tear the whole world apart to get you back. And I was like,
yeah. Fight for me. Fight for me. That's what I want. Fight for me.
Oh my God. It was so beautiful.
After that talk, like they're eating and they're talking after they've talked and stuff. She's, is full of questions. She's asking a couple things. And then they kind of flirt a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and of course she admits to him that like she can't stop thinking about him, and like she feels like she's a piece of trash, that she's treacherous and things because it's only been like 2 months since she left Tamlin. He, is telling her like, no, like don't think of yourself like that. Don't do that.
Right. And she says something along the lines of, he's like, well, what are you looking for? Or something like that. And she's like, oh, just a distraction, just fun. When truthfully, that's not how she actually feels.
So what ends up happening is she immediately is like, we should go to sleep. He's like, all right. So they lay down. They agreed earlier on that they would sleep close together for body heat because it's so cold.
Yeah.
And so Rhys has cocooned her in his wings, to which she's like shivering, and he's like, you're shivering, and she's like, my hair is wet, and he's like, no expectations, just body heat. I'm not my hands to myself. I'm gonna keep my hands. But then Feyre and her like lusty ass decides for real, because he had already told her that his wings are sensitive, and she done decided, I'm gonna take my one little finger and move it all the way down the membrane of this wing. And I'm like, bitch, he told you he's sensitive. So then she does that, and he's like, your finger's very cold. That right there triggered everything. Triggered the whole thing. So then Rhys's hand ends up somewhere else. Needless to say, we get a little spice, but it's not like spicy time. It's
just like it's like a
finger licking good. Finger licking good. That's exactly what it was.
Cut the fucking mic.
I stand by my choice of words. It was finger licking good.
Oh my god, bitch! Why?
That's all I'm gonna say.
Fuck you, yo. Oh my god! Shut up.
Morgan is hot, yo. She's like,
I hate you. I hate you for doing that. Oh my god, yes. But anywho, that's what happened. And of course, afterwards, he was telling her, like, oh, you don't think I thought about like every way that I wanted you? And not the fact that he was like, I want you splayed out on the table like a fucking feast.
I was
like, oh my god.
Okay.
Whoa.
I was like, alrighty.
I was like, alrighty then. And Feyre falls asleep, and she's like, that's the most peaceful sleep that I've ever had, and I didn't have a nightmare. I'm like,
I feel like that would have been the most peaceful. That would have been the most peaceful sleep anybody would have had. Like
I bet you didn't have a single nightmare. I bet you slept through the night.
Facts, yo.
And that is where we end for this episode. I hate you so much for doing that to me. Oh my god, my face is hot as fuck.
Morgan is still fanning herself. That's where we're at right now.
So, as we said in the beginning, like, we did read further than chapter 48, but we're going to break it, of course, into the two episodes parts that we promised. So I don't really, like, let me see. I got to read my predictions and feel like they don't, like, mess up the next chapters. I don't think they do. I had a prediction that we're not going to see war happen until A Court of Wings and Ruin, because we're very close to the end of this book. And it still feels like they're strategizing. They're coming up with their plans and stuff like that. So I don't think we're going to actually see war and the King of Hybern until the third book. Did you have any predictions?
In regards to Anaith and running free in the Spring Court, I wonder if Tamlin has gone off the deep end. And
oh, absolutely.
No. But I wonder if Tamlin has gone off so far of the deep end that he has left Anaith and Lucien to run the Spring Court. And Lucien, being not that very aggressive, probably couldn't do much in regards to Anaith.
Oh, shit.
Because I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, because Lucien is like, Tamlin isn't himself, and Anaith has been running free, and we already said, like,
Anaith got out of hand.
Yeah, and we've already said, like, Anaith probably works for Big Daddy Kane. And what if, like, Feyre leaving hit Tamlin that hard? Like, we knew we agreed that he's obsessed with her, and he's confusing that for love. So my thing is like, what if, you know, he did end up off the deep end because he really thinks that Rhys stole her, because the letter that she provided, he really doesn't think that she knows how to write or read. So maybe he really does think that Reese was the one that wrote that letter and that she has nothing in regards to that, that would make so much sense as to why Lucien saw her and then said to Reese, like, you know, your entire court, your little court or whatever is going to hell. Because what if they think that Reese has her mind? Because then that kind of makes sense as to why Lucien was so desperate to grab Feyre that he would actually just grab her. Yeah, that he would actually just grab her. Because Lucien has never been like that. He's never been like that. But if he's desperate enough, trying to make sure that the Spring Court is okay, he could have just been like, all right, I just need to get her back. I just need to get her back to Tamlin so that Tamlin will see her right himself and then be able to kick Anaith out. I fight for Lucien. I fight for him.
Bitch, we know.
I fight for my baby. I fight for my baby.
Well, we will figure that out when we go to our next episode and discuss our next chapters, which is going to be chapter 49 through 59.
49 through 59.
49 through 59, yes. So we will see if that is indeed the case. Yeah. But yeah, it's spicing up. It's spicing up and all the tea is coming out. So
I'm excited for the next couple chapters.
Girl, me too. So
can't wait.
You guys make sure you read those chapters.
Yes.
It's gonna be good. Thanks as always for listening in and for joining us, our beloved listeners.
We just want to say thank you guys for joining in, for listening. And thank you guys for just hanging out with us because we love doing what we do.
Yes.
But always stay YA at heart, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.